On the Radio is brought to you by Zurich Insurance, the perfect place to catch up with all things Melbourne. If you enjoy this content and want more inside access from the team, make sure you visit the club website.
Melbourne shapes being one of the most intriguing sides heading into a crucial 2021 season for the club. And to talk all things Demons, I'm joined on afl.com.au by their senior coach, Simon Goodwin. Simon, thanks for joining us.
No worries, Riley. Great to be on.
How is the pre-season tracking at Melbourne?
Yeah, look, it's tracking well. I think it's been well documented. We've had a couple of injuries to key forwards, but outside of that, I'm really happy where the group's at. We've had a really strong focus around our game style, around what we're trying to create there, and also been pretty healthy outside of a few little niggles here and there. So really confident where the group's placed and what they've been able to put in place, and now it's really testing it out over the next few weeks and see where we stand heading into the season. Yeah, a good hit out on Friday against the reigning premiers in Richmond. What was your biggest takeaway from that? Oh, we started to see straight away some of the things we've been working on in terms of playing the game in the forward half. It's where we want to play it. We want to be more aggressive in the way we play in a range of areas, but that's certainly one area we want to be even more aggressive in and start to establish ourselves. And I really like the mix of the difference in our midfield and forward of the ball. I thought we had some great options. So there was a lot to like very early on against a really good footy team and a good club, so it was pleasing, but still plenty of improvement in us.
I think one of the biggest takeaways I got from it was that Max Gawn spent a bit more time forward with Luke Jackson going through the ruck. Is that something you see continuing throughout the season, Max spending a bit more time forward of the ball?
Yeah, look, it's something we've earmarked, since we've drafted Luke into our footy club. He's certainly got a lot of capability forward of the ball, Luke, and he's a big boy, but he also gives you a different look in the ruck. Max is an outstanding player, and I think he showed even in the trial game how good he potentially can become, but being able to use both of them in the ruck but also both of them forward is something that we're really looking at. And as I said, they give us a different look in each area of the ground depending on what we need at that specific time. So we'll monitor that. We'll see where we need to place each guy and what we need in each area of the ground and place them accordingly.
Got a couple of first round draft picks, a couple more into the club over the off-season. Jake Bowe is one that's really intrigued me. I noticed that you were using him behind the footy more. Do you see him being that sort of great user, that kicking defender out of the back line? Is that how you see his career progressing from the start?
Yeah, we do. We feel like we've really stabilised behind the footy, with Lever and May and Neville Jetta and a few guys there that are really experienced behind the footy, but just being able to add that ball use from our back half. We're obviously got Jaden Hunt down there, but Jake's someone we brought to our footy club, Bowe, for that specific need. He's a great executor of the ball in hand. He's got a great decision making, so our ability to transition the ball from the back half is important, and Jake, we've earmarked to play that role for us.
Baileylori, obviously the other first round pick you brought in. Do you anticipate them being in a position where they could potentially play early in the season? Do you think they're ready made for senior level?
Yeah, look, there's no limitations on them. And that's my message to all our young players, that there's no limitations on where you get drafted and where you play. When you're ready, you'll play. And both those guys' form on the weekend was outstanding. So they're giving themselves a great opportunity to play senior footy this year, although it will be competitive for spots. So, but those two guys especially have put their best foot forward, and I'm sure they'll play some footy throughout the year.
The form's fluctuated over the last couple of years. Do you think there was enough good signs last season to suggest the team's back on the rise again and ready to compete again?
Yeah, there was. I thought early, we struggled. We just took a bit of time to get into the season. 1-3, we had a slow start to the year. We went to the hub and we were 8-5, and there were some really good signs throughout that period when we were in the hub around how we were playing and starting to get back to our best. And there were some games that really stood out for us. And then there were those inconsistencies. Our 2 games in Cairns in a really tight packed schedule. Was tough. We played some teams at the time that were below us in the ladder, and we lost those games. And I think that's when the supporters, coaches, players, everyone, that frustration builds, and that inconsistency is quite evident to the people. So we ended up 8-5 in the back half of the year. With some positive signs, and I think there's still some foundations that we're starting to see ourselves come back to our best footy, and they're things we wanted to build on, heading into the off season this year.
You've been in charge of this group when it has challenged, in particular in 2018 with that prelim final appearance. How far away do you think the group is from being at that level again and being able to challenge in September again?
Not far at all. As I said last year, I sat here and I said the foundations have been laid as a club over a period of time now. I stand by that. And our expectations are a lot higher. We don't want to just play finals. We want to play significant finals and win significant finals. And I sit here with great empathy for our footy club and our supporters. It's been a long time, 1964. But we need to put ourselves into a top 4 position to give ourselves the best chance to win the ultimate, and that's what we're setting out to do. We want to be part of a footy club that does something pretty special and leads our supporters to something that they haven't seen for a long, long time. And I think the foundation's been laid. I think we've had the summer that gives us the capacity to do that, and we're setting ourselves about going about it.
Do you see that within the group as well, within the playing group? I mean, there's a lot of players still on the list who were there in that prelim in 2018. Do you still see them wanting to get back to that position and believing they can do it again?
Yeah, look, I see a maturity building. I see a real leadership amongst our playing group starting to evolve. I see the likes of Petracca, Clayton Oliver, Angus Brayshaw, Christian Salem, behind the ball with Stevie May and Jake Lever. There's a real maturity about how they're going about their footy, and they understand what it takes to be successful. And they also understand the challenges that come with that. As I said, there's been some good foundations that have been laid, but as we start to progress, there's a greater understanding of the consistency required to do it and get there. So I'm excited by what the playing group's done over the summer, but as I said, we've got to go out there and show it.
I know you're playing a bit from behind the 8 ball towards the back end of last year, but those wins in the last couple of weeks of the season against GWS and Essendon, they were sort of like mini-finals in the sense that you had to win them to keep the season alive. Is that a positive sign, do you feel, that when the pressure's on, the team can lift to those standards? Does that give you a bit of confidence going forward into this year that you can do it when it matters?
Yeah, look, we spoke about that after the season. There was enormous pressure on us as a footy club to win those games. They were like mini-finals, and we were able to execute and perform in those games. And even though we didn't get to the finals and weren't able to experience that once again, those games will hold us in great stead. And I think that's a sign of maturity. You start to experience those games more often. You start to achieve in those games, and that builds the belief within the playing group and within the club, and starts to build the trust within the supporter base.
You brought Ben Brown into the footy club over the off-season. Obviously, he's had a bit of knee surgery before the campaign starts. How's he tracking in his recovery, and when do you anticipate him being back on the field? Yeah,
look, Ben's been super since he's come into our club. He trained really hard, got himself fit, and was executing some things within our train that was really exciting. Unfortunately for him, he got injured. But we're going to be really cautious with Ben. He's an important player for us, and we've signed him for 4 years, and we think he's got a lot of goals left in him to kick in our forward half. So he looks like he's on track to be back around round 3, round 4. But we won't push that. We'll make sure he's right and he goes through the steps appropriately. But we're excited by what he can bring. He's kicked 240 goals in a 4-year patch. It's a lot of goals. I think it's the most in the comp. So we're excited what he can bring, and we want to get him back.
You mentioned there he had those 3 seasons where he was a consistent 60 goal a year goal kicker. Do you think he can reach those heights again?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's still at that age where he can improve his game, and I think in his own words he wants to improve his game, and he's really clear about what that looks like, and we don't see him just as that type of player. We think he's still got growth in his game and become an even better player for us.
And Sam Whedom, do you expect him that same sort of mark around round 3 or 4?
Yeah, they're both sort of on track, pretty much in line with each other about when they come back. So we'll have to manage that as a team. But they'll both obviously come back through the VFL and play some VFL footy. So we'll get a good indication of when they're ready to play AFL footy. There's
been a lot of emphasis put on Tom McDonald with those two going down, and there was a lot said last November during the trade period about Tom's future. What were your conversations with him at the time, and then both now, when there was even a lot of spoken about whether or not he might need to go back into defence to remould his career with Ben Brown coming into the club? So what have the conversations been since then around his role at the footy club and how it now changes with those two going down?
Yeah, look, Tom was outstanding in the off-season. We spoke at his exit interview before we left the hub, and Tom was really clear about what he wanted to do in his off-season, how he wanted to train. He wanted to lose some weight. He wanted to get his agility back. He felt he was carrying around too much weight, and he just needed a circuit breaker. And we spoke about that there would be an opportunity to look elsewhere. But if you walk back through these doors, it's a clean slate. And we've got a good relationship, Tom and I, and we understood where that would sit. And as it got closer towards the back end of trade and we knew nothing was going to happen, we started to have some more conversations about what his pre-season would look like. And we wanted to give him the opportunity to play on the wing, but also as a forward. So we've trained him up in both those areas of the ground. So he's had an outstanding summer. He's lived up to his word around what he was going to do in his off-season and through his pre-season. And I'm sure if you ask him, we've lived up to ours in terms of giving him opportunity. And I think we saw in the trial game on the weekend, as a forward, he started to mark the ball again and he started to really execute the way he wanted to play. So I was rapt to see how well he went on the weekend.
When he was at his best in that 2018 season, his fitness base seemed like one of his biggest assets. Does that give you confidence that even when Ben Brown and Sam Whedom are fit again, that he can keep his place in that side, potentially on a wing, as you just mentioned there?
Yeah, look, we're really open to how our team structures up. Tom spent some time on the wing and we actually liked the look of how that started to play out for us in some of the game simulation that we were doing. So we're open to playing, Ben, Sam, Luke, Tom, all in the same team if that needs to be the case. We're certainly not pigeonholing. This is how we want our team to line up, and this is who's going to be in it. It'll be the players that are in form and the best way the team's performing.
And Jack Viney and Angus Brayshaw obviously had the foot injuries. Do you expect them to put themselves in the mix potentially for this March Community Series game?
Yeah, look, they're both probably. Angus will play a half this week against in the VFL.
Yep. And
then he'll play against Box Hill the week after and put him in calculations for round one. Jack's probably a little bit further behind, so he's probably a little bit more touch and go to play round one, but people get fixated on round one. Jack will certainly be up and running by round 2, round 3 and be raring to go. Just
while we're on the injury issues, obviously some horrible news last week with Aaron Neitch and his knee troubles. As a coach, being a man manager, how do you go about sort of putting your arms around him and wrapping him up, making sure he's okay mentally as well as physically on this recovery? Yeah, look, it's really tough. It's really an emotional time for Aaron. And us as a footy club and his teammates. So, I've had a few conversations with Aaron. I went and sat with him in his backyard on Sunday. He was flying back to Adelaide to see the family back at the family farm, and we had some conversations about footy and just letting the emotion of what's taken place to unfold, and then we'll re-engage with what it looks like from there. But he's 20. He wants to play sport again, and he wants to get the knee surgery done. But what that looks like in his own mind, let's just let the emotion die, and we'll pick that up in a few months' time about where that sits. So it's shattering for him. He's put a lot of time and effort into rehabbing the previous 2. So there's a great deal of empathy with him, and I think he feels the support from the footy club and the people around him. Is there an expected return date for Cozzy as well, coming back home? Yeah, Cozzy will be back Sunday. Okay. From Perth. Yep. Obviously, really tragic circumstances with his mother. He's been doing a lot of training away from the footy club in Adelaide, with some help over there from some people that are really specialists. So we're really confident he's going to come back in great shape. But the first thing for Cozzy is to really go away and and deal with his mother's passing and the community elements within his culture. So we're really confident that Cozzy will be up and available for round 1. I think one of the biggest highlights, certainly from a Melbourne perspective and even across the entire competition last year, was Christian Petracca's breakout campaign. Do you feel like he can go to even greater heights than that? I mean, it struck a lot of people just how improved he was last year and how he was able to elevate his game so much. What's his potential going forward? I think we've all seen that he's got enormous potential. He isn't going backwards. He's going to keep to a really high level of playing because he's manic about being the best player he can possibly be and being involved in the best team that he can possibly be. So his leadership, he's our best trainer. He trains to a really high level all the time, and he's really driven about how he improves his game. And everything that I've seen through the summer would indicate that he's only going to get better. And he had a breakout season last year, but a lot of good players have breakout seasons and then they just keep going, and he's got an appetite to want to keep going and improve and get better. So what he has done well, he's been able to manage expectation really well. He's become a great teammate and a great team player, and he wants to be part of a great club. I know you've brought in a lot and been proactive in bringing in a lot of recruits to try and elevate the team's level, but when you have someone that can break out like that and improve from within, it certainly helps the group. Is there anyone that you think can follow Christian Petracca's lead this year? Who are you excited about after a big summer?
Oh, look, there's lots. We've certainly identified, we've brought in a lot of talent over a number of years, and we've had to let that talent develop and mature, but I think we've still got great. I think Clayton Oliver can take his game to another level. I've seen his summer's been absolutely brilliant. Baileylori is another one forward of the ball that we think's having an outstanding year, and I think we're going to see the best of Jake Lever and Stephen May. More experienced Stephen and had a bit of a breakout year last year, but Jake Lever's had an enormous summer. And I think we're going to see the best of Jake Lever. He's still a young player, but I think we're going to see the best of those two working together. Just
on Clayton Oliver, he seems like a player that obviously has a big impact on games, but still is scrutinised for whether or not he can do more in terms of breaking out a stoppage, using his feet more as opposed to his hands. What's your big message to him going forward? How does he get to that next level?
He's certainly worked on that, around his ability to exit from contest areas and use his legs out of contest areas. He's been doing some great work with Adam Uze and his teammates, but he's just in great physical condition. He's got a lot of power, so he is much scrutinised. I'm not sure why. He's been an unbelievable player from the day he started playing for the Melbourne Footy Club, and like all players, he's just developing. He's still a very young player that's only going to get better and better, and he's going to be a really outstanding player, and I can see him having a great year.
I know it's only March, but there's probably going to be a few Melbourne fans nervous about his contract situation. Do you envisage his long-term future being at the club?
Without question. He's a great person, Clayton. He's very passionate about his team, his club, and driving success. And I think we've got that right across our playing group. They want to stay together and they want to achieve together. So I can see that playing out in a positive way for us. And I'm looking forward to coaching Clayton for a long time.
I believe you've got 4 train-on players with you now trolling for a list spot before the SSP deadline on March 9. Do you anticipate filling at least one of those vacant list spots by then?
Yeah, I would assume so. We've obviously had 2 knee reconstructions now with Marty Hoare and Aaron Nitschke, and we had a couple of list spots available. So, our recruiting team and list management are working through what that looks like. But, we've got some exciting potentials that are training with us at the moment, and I know we're looking really closely at filling a couple of those spots.
I know a lot of attention's been on Madge since he walked into the club. Has he impressed you since he came on board? And I suppose, do you envisage him, if he were to win one of those spots, being a potential forward for the club, given there's been a few injuries down forward? Do you see him playing that role?
Yeah, we've probably looked at Madge a little bit differently. He's a little bit behind. He obviously hasn't had a summer of training, so we're taking it slowly with Madge at the moment, and really getting him into our footy club and getting him up to speed. He's certainly not going to play for us early in the season, but what we need to make sure we've got depth to cover if we do get any more injuries moving forward. So we're going to give him the best opportunity to play and to play well, and that's by building him up and getting some good quality work and training into him. So we'll see where that's it. He's been really good for us so far. He's done everything we've asked him to do, and he's progressing in his training. So we'll certainly see if there's an opportunity there for him.
There's been a couple of big coaching recruits as well over the off-season. Mark Williams is one that's come on board, and a pretty high-profile one of that was a premiership coach in 2004. What's his biggest impact been since joining the club?
He's a winner. Yep. He comes from a rich family that wins, and they win lots of games and they win finals. He's got an unbelievable ability to develop players in a whole range of different ways, and he brings a great kicking program to our footy club. So he's got a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm. As I said, he's a winner, and he's embedding that within our playing group, and especially within our younger players.
Adam Uze as well.
Yeah, Uze is just a great footy person. Obviously, he's well known at the Melbourne Footy Club. He's gone away and developed his coaching at Hawthorn, for 7 or 8 years, and come away with some great philosophies and how the game should be played. And he sees the game incredibly well, and he's going to be a great asset for myself. He's really experienced in coaching now, and he brings a great eye to the game.
There's a couple of intriguing players from my perspective that I've watched closely over the last couple of years and just how their development's unfolded. Harrison Petty's one of them. Obviously lost all of 2020 to injury. Where do you see him, and what end of the field do you see his long-term career at? Because he's been thrown around a bit towards the start of his career, but where's he been training this summer, and how's he going on the way back?
Yeah, look, we're just getting some continuity back into Harrison. As you said, he missed a whole year of footy, and he missed a pretty solid chunk of 219 as well. We recruited him as a key back, and that's where we've placed him throughout the summer. We want to give him the best chance to have his success down there. He's building some real continuity in his training, and he's not far off. He's really improving, but he's going to have to earn his spot. But we think he's progressing well, and that's where we'd like to play him.
Another one who's gone into that back line is Jaden Hunt. Are you expecting him to get back to that form of 2018 where he was sort of ramping off that half-back and one of the most exciting players to watch in the competition? It hasn't necessarily worked for him as a forward, although he did impact a couple of times last year down there. But is that where you see his footy going forward?
Yeah, look, he's had a great summer, and he's got himself super fit. I think with the new stand and the mark rule, there's going to be some opportunity with that type of players run out of the back half to come back into the game. I think the game's been pretty stagnant from the back half for a little while now. So that new rule gives us an opportunity to put Jaden back there to use his legs to help our offence. And you combine him, Hunty with, Trent Rivers and Christian Salem and Jake Bowe, and you start to get some genuine run and ball use out of your back half of the ground. So that's the reason we're putting him back there. He's had a great summer and he's looking forward to it. Do
you like that rule? There's been a lot of conjecture around fans and hasn't been taken to so well by fans, but most of the coaches I speak to seem to love it.
Yeah, I like it. I think it just does open the game up slightly, not too much, but enough to help the ball move in certain areas of the ground. And I think as coaches, as we do, we'll look at how we implement it and how we might get an advantage from it, and then how we might, also take it away, the offensive element away. So there'll be a lot of looking and assessing of how things are going, and obviously there'll be some data that'll be taken and a whole range of different things, and we'll come up with a way that we want to operate in offence, but also in defence, around the rule.
You mentioned before Stephen May and Jake Lever. How important was that to the side to actually get them together again for an entire season last year?
Oh, it was critical.
Yeah.
And, cohesion's a big thing in the game, and people don't understand the importance of cohesion and players playing together over a number of games, number of seasons to get cohesion in the way you play and just understanding how you play together. Last year gave us a great chance to do that with Jake and Stephen, and through this summer I've seen that evolve even further. And even in the trial game on the weekend, you would have seen it starting to play out. They're going to be very hard to play against, the two of them together. So we're excited about what they can deliver as a duo. And we brought them to our footy club, and they've stiffened us up behind the ball. There's no question about that, and that allows us to be more aggressive in other areas of the ground. So as we've become a little bit stiffer behind the ball, we can be a bit more aggressive in our front half.
Just a final one from a positional sense, but James Harms, does he go back to being a pure midfielder this year?
Yeah.
He does?
Yeah.
He's happy about
that? James is happy to play anywhere.
Yep.
We back end of 2019, he played a couple of games at half-back and had some relatively good success. We put him there in 2020 to enable Christian Petracca to come into our midfield and spend a bit more time in there. So it worked for us in one sense, but probably James didn't quite get the benefit of playing at half-back. So we'll bring him back into the midfield and increase our rotations for the midfield. And I think James, was pretty happy to be back in the midfield and playing that role.
Been in the seat at Melbourne for a few years now, but obviously quite a few changes to the coaching landscape in the wake of the pandemic last year. Have you had to improvise at all in the way you've done things with fewer resources over the summer?
Oh, look, in some ways it's been beneficial in terms of, it's a lot easier to get aligned in terms of how you want to play and how you want to coach. There's no question coaches are doing more. It's just reality. There's less coaches and the same amount of players. So, but I've enjoyed it. There's elements of my role where I've been back on the tools a little bit more and enjoying getting back into the art of coaching. So I've loved that, and I think other coaches have enjoyed the increase in responsibility right across the board. So I think in some ways it's been great, but there's certainly some challenges around time and making sure we all do it well.
I think Gil's just spoken and said that your round one clash is definitely going to be at the G, despite
wow.
Essendon and Hawthorn wanting it elsewhere. But
I would have thought so. Our supporters have been waiting a while. So, it's just great. It's our home. We're a tenant club. It's, we're born out of the MCG. So, I'm glad that that's the case.
All right, well, Simon, thanks for your time on AFL.com today, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Riley.